Thank you, Max. It's great to be here. It's kind of funny. It's like full circle coming back. I remember being in the same position as you guys were in just a few years ago, kind of trying to learn as much as I can from people in the industry, trying to figure out what's my next thing. So, yeah, just take it in. Like, just take all these moments in because you learn a lot. I learned a lot back in my day too. So, yeah, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. So, what I'm going to be talking about and kind of what I'm going to go through is just kind of give a quick kind of content of what I'm doing. Give like a personal background of who I am, childhood, what brought me into industrial design, my college days back in these days, the career after college, my kind of career from doing stuff in agencies to doing stuff in interning, and kind of been around a little bit after I graduated. And then kind of the main goal and the main kind of story or theme I'm trying to go with this talk is just design what makes you you, right? Like design what makes you you. Like what does that mean exactly? Like we're all designers, we're all individuals, we all have a unique perspective to bring to wherever you want to end up going. Footwear is kind of my path, but whatever, industrial design, you have multiple routes to go in, but just make sure whatever you're designing, it is truly who you are and stick to that. So start off with my little background. So this was a little happy-go-lucky me right there in the middle. It's my sister right here in the front and my older brother. Had a great childhood with my parents. Grew up in Los Angeles, California. Obviously just right down the road from here. Just one of those kids who just kind of who was always drawing, always playing video games, loved building model cars and creating things. And I just loved working with my hands and tinkering with things and just figuring out how things worked. My parents don't even know this, but sometimes when they'll be gone for long trips, I'll literally take the Sega Genesis completely apart and put it back together as fast as I could. So I was kind of one of those kids, probably like a lot of you guys are. So always pressing buttons, just really curious about what does this do? Like what happens if I turn this switch on? But I didn't really know what that meant. That was just kind of who I was. So I was just being true to exactly who I was. Also, I was a 90s kid, so just like many 90s kids in my day, this guy was a superhero, Michael Jordan, right? Like you'd watch a game with Michael Jordan playing and it was like a poetry, it was like, I don't even know, I couldn't explain it, but growing up watching Michael Jordan play, he played on a different level than everybody. And everybody wanted to be like Mike, I was included. I didn't play basketball, but I just wanted to be like him. But more so than like watching him play and all this stuff and his style of play and his swagger on the court were his shoes. Like everybody loved Jordans. It's obvious. It's not anything new. But when I would go to a shoe store and see a pair of shoes, I would literally focus on every last detail. This shoe in particular, this exact one, the Jordan 7, it was released in '92. I was 5 years old. But I remember seeing kids in my school wearing these shoes. I remember seeing them on the streets. Some like really different that just sparked something in my mind. Like, what is this? I didn't know what design was. I just knew that this was cool. I just knew that this was kind of fresh from his team color jersey. And so I was really fascinated by the colors and the graphic and how it all came together. I remember going to the warehouse shoe store and literally examining every last detail of these shoes. And so continue on into my adolescence and junior high. I would watch these athletes and see them perform at top levels and being the best at their jobs and best at their sport. And then I would go to the store and just be enamored by the shoes that they were wearing. But it was funny because like I just thought the shoes were cool. Like at that time I was like, this is cool. Griffey's cool. Kobe's cool. His shoes are cool. That was pretty much how it went at that time for me. But lo and behold, like the more and more I'm kind of like been in the industry, the more and more I'm kind of like knowing. Like for Griffey to perform at the level that he was performing at, he needed something to keep him in and allow him to give as much force in his swing. For somebody like Kobe to dunk and do these levels, his shoes had to help him perform at this high optimal level. It wasn't just a cool object, it was actual designed product that was helping him become a better athlete, right? And that was kind of something that I was learning as I've gone through this program, gone through like life and just things like that. It wasn't just like cool things. It was things that are helping these athletes become better. Because when you think about it, like before like this 90s, which is the renaissance of whatever footwear design, before that it was like shoes were just kind of leather or canvas on rubber, and that was it. They're mostly designed by fashion designers and graphic designers for the most part. And it wasn't until this time period when industrial designers were designing footwear, architects were designing footwear, car designers were designing footwear, and they weren't just putting things together and paneling leather. They were like creating carbon fiber pieces to help give as much torque into the shoe. For somebody like Odell Nomo, I don't know if many of you guys know, but for him to get as much torque, his shoe needs to be able to provide him the support, and there had to be a design to go along with that to help create that. And for somebody like Michael Vick to perform, like do this, it's crazy. There's all crazy stuff, and it was amazing. So that was me, young me again. Play baseball. Pitching was kind of my thing. I love pitching, and graduated high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. Not in a bad way. I wasn't sure. So I just figured that baseball would kind of be the route that I would take. So I decided to go to Pasadena City College to play on the baseball team. And that was kind of my goal. I was going to like see where that took me as far as I went. I was always an artistic, kind of creative kid again, going back on that. But baseball was kind of, I didn't know what design was, so I was just kind of focusing on baseball, and that was going to be my career. This is what I was going to do with my life. But I went to Pasadena, which a lot of you know, is just right around the corner from the Art Center College of Design and Arts. So I wasn't just playing ball. I was taking these design classes because I found an interest. But before that, I just thought like design was fashion design. I didn't know what industrial design was. I didn't know what automotive design was, but being that the college was right there, I was kind of learning these things like, oh, this is interesting. This is something new. I don't really know what this is, but I'm kind of loving this. This is kind of putting together everything that I loved doing as a kid. It's kind of coming back full circle. So I would like find myself just walking around the campus and seeing other students work, and then I'd have practice and finish practice, and I'd just walk around the campus and just like be in awe with these design students. And then I was taking classes and learning from these professors. Then I came to a crossroads when it was time for me to graduate. I was like, dang, I was offered an actual D1 scholarship, which is funny to really think back on. It's like, do I continue this thing that I've kind of known and loved, or do I go with this new experience that I'm kind of falling in love with, and it's feeling like more of who I am as a person? So I decided to turn down the scholarship and go with the ID, and ended up at Cal State Long Beach. Go Beach, what's up? Here we go, yeah. Give me a little couple chuckles or something. There we go. So yeah, I was going to Beach. I was, doing my early design classes. I was loving it. It was fun. I was using my hands. I was building things. I was sketching. I was, creating, and I was loving it. And it wasn't until this one point, one of my early classes. I'm not sure which exactly class it was. It's been so long, but this was like my first time. I was like, oh, I'm gonna decide to design a shoe or a cleat. This was my first class, first footwear project. And so it was funny because again, I was a pitcher growing up, and I had a lot of issues when I would pitch. Like my shoes would only last like a game, and then I'd have holes all throughout the shoes, and my laces were ripped up. So going with the ID and learning the ID process, kind of reverse engineer, like, okay, how do I solve this problem that I've always had my whole life? So decided to design this pitching specific baseball cleat that had abrasion in the toe, and it had like this cover that kept the laces protected, and yada, yada, yada. And I was really excited about it. And from there, I was kind of sold. That was like my shot of like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I don't care about it, but anybody tells me this is what I'm doing. I love the process. I love the thought of it. It kind of brought back knowing that footwear design was an actual career, because prior to a lot of this time, I didn't even know that it was an actual thing. I just thought, boom, there's shoes type of thing, like magic. So this is kind of one of the points that I kind of want to speak to all you guys is find your passion and design for that passion that fuels you, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Mine was footwear. You can take bits and pieces of that and kind of go back to your childhood, your memories, and just know what you're passionate about. It doesn't even have to be childhood. It could be something that you become passionate about in the past 5 years. It doesn't matter. But I think as designers, we kind of need to learn to, or know that, again, we're unique and we need to find our passion and we need to design to that and, push that and continue that whole jazz. So anyway, again, going back, every project I did, it didn't matter what the project was, I was doing a shoe. If it was a housewares project, I was going to figure out how to make it a shoe. Like, it didn't matter. I probably annoyed a lot of my professors, but I didn't care. At the time, I apologize, Max and everybody, now looking back that I'm older, but at the time, that's what I was passionate about, that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be better, right? I wanted to, similar to like sports, you want to, sharpen your sword to become better. So yeah, every project I was doing was a Footwear project. The one in the middle, this one, little one right here, this women's shoe was a competition. I was in the senior class. I was talking to, Shelly brought this up, but it was one of the projects I entered in this competition that we had to do for the class, and it was a worldwide competition and all footwear designers. And I think at this time I was still like in junior studio or something, but out of like a field of, I think 200, I placed second, which only like was an extra shot of nitrous into the gas. I don't know much about cars, but we're just I was talking to Max about cars on the way over here, but I'm gonna pretend like I do. It was an extra shot of NOS into the tank, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm doing for sure. I care even less now. This is what I'm gonna do. And yeah, so, but also, I would do illustrations and art, and that was another thing that I would kind of do on the side. I was doing a lot of like album art covers, a little art direction on the side, and a lot of merchandise for different hip hop artists that are coming up at the time. And this was just something I was just doing for friends because it was fun, and it just kind of was another outlet for me that was outside of industrial design, right? But I was a lot of these projects, I was using the industrial design methodology and the thought process of, okay, what do you want? Oh, how can I make this, blah, blah, blah. So, but it was also an outlet, and it was also like helping me like learn different processes of being creative, which is also another thing. We're all, for the most part, creative people, so we should have those other creative outlets, not just kind of what's forced upon you in school. Not forced upon you, wrong choice of words, but So I graduated, and that's me right there, graduating with my class. And I'm wondering to myself, did I make the right choices? Like, was this the right thing to do? Like, I kind of doubled down a little bit too much on the footwear thing. Am I going to find a job? I didn't know. I don't think any of us really know. It's just you just have to go with your gut, right? Like, y'all just kind of have to go with your gut. But I was questioning that, and I think that's a thing that we all, as students, after you graduate, not knowing exactly what your future holds, like you question, like, did you make the right choices? Is your portfolio good enough? Did you take the right classes? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? So while you're searching for a job, it's just know, I just want to like let you know that it's a natural thing, and don't be too worried about it. Don't beat yourself up. Just keep on going, and it's going to be good. So, during this time of questioning, I would kind of ask, like, I would show my portfolio, my work to other friends who were also creative and some not creative, just my work and some of the projects I worked on in my portfolio. And a lot of the people that I knew outside of like the ID program would tell me like, oh man, like your work is really cool, but it doesn't really feel like you as far as like how you're kind of branding yourself, or it's like, because I was kind of like trying, all the projects I worked on were one thing, but how I like marketed myself towards the outside world, the professional world, was kind of pretty similar to everybody around me in class, right? So it's time for me to double down on that. It's time for me to change that up and present myself in a way that's more me and that kind of stands out and it's a little bit different. So I decided to completely overhaul my portfolio and my resume, add more projects, do something different with my resume, show that I'm not just like an industrial designer, show my creative skills and show my illustration abilities and things like that, and just kind of showing like who I was and kind of being a little bit more of me. So after that, it helped because I actually was getting responses, and I got my first full-time gig working at this creative agency called Optimus LA, and their number one client at the time, which was 2013, was Nike Basketball West Coast. So I was working out of their creative space, doing graphic designs There would be like a top tier California basketball team that would come in. We'll customize all their full kit. We'll create jerseys for them. We're creating sublimated socks that'll match the Kobe's that were coming out, and we're just like creating a lot of just different things. And no, it wasn't like a straight shot into an ID job, but again, it was something new, and it was more of a learning experience. And I kind of took what I've done in the past and brought it into here, and it was teaching me more and more about different aspects of design, not just like industrial design. And then it was just, at the end of the day, it was just my foot in the door, right? So my plan when I got this job was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna get in here, I'm gonna do this work, I'm gonna show myself that I'm a really, really hard-working guy, and I'm gonna be working with these Nike Eakins, because they obviously run the account, and they kind of work, the agency works with the Nike reps. So I'm gonna work with these guys and show them that I'm not just a graphic designer, but I'm also a footwear designer. And then when the perfect time, I'm gonna show them my work. And then I had this whole like scheme in my head. But at the end of the day, again, it was my foot in the door, and I was gonna figure it out. But I didn't have to do all that, because I got an internship with New Balance, which was I'm really thankful for, and it was a great experience. So I got the call on, I think I was with my dad. I was with you. I was like on my way to work or something. I got a call for an on-phone interview like on a Monday, and they wanted me to fly out like 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks after that. And it was the dead of winter, and it's California, so I don't even know what the winter really looks like. I just know the closest thing to winter I know is Big Bear, which is like, it's like manufactured winter. I had to buy a coat. I didn't even know there was a difference between a coat and a jacket. I thought they were all the same thing, but no, there's a difference. I learned that. So I got up, like, I think it was 2.5, 3 weeks. I'm in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I don't even know, you guys don't even know what Lawrence, Massachusetts is. But that was originally where the textile mills were back in the Industrial Revolution, which is crazy to think about. This is like a little side note. The footwear industry was started back in the early 1900s, and it was all done within like the span of like Boston. That's where a lot of like the first American footwear brands were, because they were all off this river that would create the textile and the leather tannery and all that stuff. So I was in one of the original like textile mills from the 1908, or I think even earlier than that. It was ridiculous. And then now New Balance owns that space, and now they create out of there. It's kind of like, again, like full circle. But yeah, it was a great experience. This right here is my first day in Boston. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing out here. Didn't even have a place to live. I had to figure it out when I got there. I was living in a hostel. That was hostile. But you know, it was my foot in the door, and I was going to figure it out as I went. Like, you know, I had my boots on. They weren't really that good. My coat wasn't really a coat. It was more of a thick jacket. I layered up. It didn't work. Had to buy gloves at the gas station. Like, I was figuring it out. It's all good. I'm chasing my dream. And so it was the New Balance Design Foundry internship. So it was a 6-month program. They get five candidates from different parts, and they bring them and they do 6-month rotation. Mine was a winter rotation. And so I was with 5 really talented people, right? And I was learning from these guys. So there's my boy Jared right there. He's now working at Vans. He's killing it. He's a really talented dude, really technical. Then we got my boy Jay right here. He's dope. He's just like a prodigy, like, designer. Like, he could make just a line look like a perfect something. Like, he actually was the one who designed the last Westbrook, and now he's actually he's working at Adidas with me. He works in the basketball department. Really cool dude, really down to earth. Then we got my boy Edwin. It's impossible to find a photo of Edwin, so I just put a picture of his last project on there. But really good dude. He was the funniest guy without even knowing he was funny. He's the clumsiest person I've ever met in my life. Really cool dude. And then my boy Dylan, who regretfully passed away out of nowhere, which is pretty sad, about 1.5 years ago. But yeah, I didn't want to get too deep on that, but it was a really sad experience, and yeah, rest in peace to him. But yeah, we're a tight-knit bunch. We were just kind of all hungry, trying to figure it out. Didn't know what we were doing, but we knew exactly what we were doing. And we all kind of played up each other's strengths. It was almost like we, on the same team, right? Like, I'm this position, he's this other position. We're all like fighting for these starting positions, but we're all competing against each other, but we're also like want each other to win. And so it was like every day, this was us shoveling snow off cars and skidding around the roads. And again, I'm from California. I barely had a winter coat. Like this was my life every day. But it was great, man. It was a great experience, great time in my life, and yeah. And so, intern project again, like, coming from here, like footwear at the time wasn't really a thing as much as it is probably now. But and I was still kind of figuring out what footwear was. But going to New Balance and knowing like the actual process of creating the product and how it's supposed to make athletes better, and how the whole purpose of footwear is to make them better, and like what's the story, and then learning from my colleagues, other interns, and then learning from people who've been in the industry for years. It was just like a crash course to me to just like up my game about 30 points, just like that. And so I'm just trying to prove myself, right? I'm just like doing whatever I can. I'm designing things. I'm doing not only my this is like intern project work, but I'm doing like inline product work and trying to show what I have, and having coffee talks and doing all that stuff, which is required when you get into the industry that nobody really talks about, is like having to have those FaceTimes and talking to people and like learning and having mentors, and it was fun. It was intense, and it was great, but it was fun. This is my last rendering, and I feel like I was like, oh man, I did it. Like this is, I really made this. Like made it. I don't have a photo of it, but had like the samples made. Went through the whole process of actually going from a sketch, a concept, to sending it off to Asia, to getting it tech packed, and to having like multiple rounds of getting it correct, and then having a final shoe that you can call something that you designed and created, and it's 100% yours. Well, kind of 100%. It got his new in on it, so that's maybe like 85% New Balance and the rest percent yours. But anyways, it was great, and I really kind of like wanted to show like all my skills, not just like design. I wanted to create like a complete holistic story around this shoe. The idea of it was like a Olympic weightlifting shoe to be worn by athletes from all different countries. It was inspired by rocks, and we're using this new tech at the time, the BOA closure system. And so I had all these technical benefits, and using different type of PU materials, making it like a seamless vamp toe down kind of area, and having that. And then also another part of it that I wanted to do is, rather than having the colors of the country be the color of the shoe, is like more, since it was inspired by rock, the rock that's known for that country would draw the colorway of the shoe. And so I kind of, with my presentation, I was like, here's my shoe, and here's the training version of the shoe that you can wear before the event. And then here's all the colorways, and this is the reason why there's colorways of this. And so I went through the whole thing, and I think I blew everybody at the New Balance office not out of the water, but I was like, just shocked everybody with like how much I thought about every last detail of this project. Again, it's just right now just rendering, but how much of the details I thought about everything. It wasn't just like how it worked. It was also like how this would be marketed at this event, and how blah, 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 blah. And so at the end of my internship, somebody pulled me aside, one of the directors, and told me, I really want you to stay here. I need you to stay here, but we don't have any actual footwear design positions open at the moment. Would you be willing to try your hand in color materials and kind of start off there, and then kind of work your way into the footwear roles when we have some? And I was like, yeah, like let's do it. So I did that. That was my first full-time design job. I was doing color materials. It wasn't like something that I wanted to do, but I was in the door, and I was rubbing elbows with everybody who I needed to rub elbows with, and I was on my way to like doing all that stuff, and it was fun too. It wasn't just designing and just blocking colors. It was creating the full seasonal palette for the for the business unit. It was thinking about the materials for this time of the season, how this shoe and that shoe will be marketed together during this event. So it was like a full circle kind of like not just like blocking colors, it was like thinking about the whole strategy of the shoes. So it was a great learning experience, and it was a great opportunity. I loved every minute of it. I just didn't love Boston that much, if I'm being real myself. So I had to figure out how to get out. So luckily Adidas came knocking at the door, and so yeah, they came knocking at the door pretty soon after I. It was about 2 years. I was at New Balance for about 2 years. So Adidas like, yeah, we really want you. We've seen your work. We've heard about you, and we have this role opening up in the baseball group. I'm like, oh well, okay, that sparked my interest. And so we're now creating this new thing for baseball. We want to make baseball exciting. Baseball has kind of been boring for the past few years. We want to bring hype back. We've seen your work. We know what you've done. Can you help us? And it wasn't a Footwear role, but it was like a storytelling with color materials role. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. I love baseball. It is getting a little dry. How can we make this thing fun? So this is kind of like a lot of my early projects working at Adidas was creating really fun, high energy stories around baseball and different moments, right? So 4th of July, like how do we create something that people are gonna like pay attention to and wanna wear? And it's like, this is all like things that I come up with and creating different moments on the calendar, kind of like almost art directing sometimes some of the direction of how we do it. Like, what if we do this Bomb Pop inspired shoe? Okay, that's cool. What if we do this Fast and Furious inspired shoe for this moment? Like, yeah, let's do that. Like, how does that become an actual thing? So then you get and you figure it out. Like, it's just an idea at a certain point. Now you got to figure it out. Now, how does it actually manifest into a real, actual marketable and sellable product? Father's Day, we need to do something. What are we going to do? It's a prostate cancer awareness, blah, blah, blah. Dad jeans, that's funny. So it was like different things like that, and it was fun, and it still is fun, and it's exciting, and it's a great team, and it's been really exciting working with him. And then I just went to my boss one day, and I was like, okay, this has been great, but I need something more, right? I need what's my next thing? I went to school for ID. Like, I've done this for, I think up at this point it's been about a year and a half. Done this to a point, I need something to really get my teeth in there. So he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna throw you this project. It's gonna be a passion project. They need a trainer to design. Let's see how it goes. If it works out, we'll see where it goes from there. So this was my first like full project where I designed the tooling, create the upper, tell the story. The brief was handed off to me. I'm like creating the design for this speed turf that we're creating for this past season, fall winter 2019 season. And so the brief was, we want something that is it's a turf shoe that's able to be worn on grass, turf field, and the dirt, that all terrains of the baseball field. But we also need something that's going to be nice enough for the kids are going to want to wear it. And our coaches are going to want to wear it. It has to have a fine detail, and it also has to kind of loop in with the baseball cleat that's releasing this time at some way or somehow. And so I really, again, like, okay, like it's time, let's go. So really focused in on like the traction story and like how I'm going to solve this problem. Because I don't know if you guys are too familiar with like playing baseball at all, but there's like multiple levels of terrain. You're on the dirt, and then you're on the grass, and there's very few shoes that like really work on all surfaces. So, and me knowing that from playing, I was like, okay, how do I solve this problem? So kind of dove right into like thinking about like how that issue would be solved. And yeah, and I kind of got the attention of my bosses and a couple other people at Adidas. So then they shipped me to New York. Man, I've been around a little bit. They shipped me off to New York to work out of the Brooklyn Creative Farm. For like a advanced concepts rotation. So the Brooklyn Farm, and I don't know if any of you guys are too familiar with that, it's kind of like the advanced out there, kind of what Adidas is going to do in the future, how they're going to create things, what's going to be the new for 2024. And so I was kind of one of one of the first rotations when they made the switch to the advanced concepts. So it was a completely different thing. It wasn't completely different, but it gets very political at times. We're sitting just trying to figure out like, what's the story? What are we trying to tell? What's the future of the brand? What's the narrative that we're trying to create? It was more than just designing a product. Like it was like 3 weeks. Like I didn't even pick up a pen. Like and that was interesting for me. It was like now I'm using that thought process, but in a different way, right? The ID thought process of reverse engineering things and like how are you going to break this apart and then put it together. But rather than thinking about it as like an actual holistic product, physical thing, now it's like, what are the narratives for the overall brand? What are we trying to create? How do we tell these stories? Who are our consumers? What is the world going to be in 4 or 5 years from now? I don't know. Who knows? Nobody really knows. But we're the tastemakers to help create that, and it was exciting. Very stressful at times, but it was something new, and it was exercising a new muscle in my brain, which was great. And then also that, and then once we kind of had that figured out, it was time to kind of like get some pen to paper and design like the latest new shoe that we were creating at the time, which is the Harden Volume 6. And so this is very early stuff, so it's okay for me to show this. I don't think anybody's gonna really matter. But just creating like what the story is for Harden. How do we solve his problems that he has on court? How do we make him a better athlete? How do we collaborate together? It wasn't just, whereas before it's like one designer designing one thing. Now it's like a group of designers attacking one thing together. We're all working together and working, together in unison, but having a different perspective, but mashing them together and then pulling them apart. And then, everybody creates their own thing. Now, how do we take that and then we put it all together, post the sketches. We got a presentation. We have a presentation in 1 hour. Nobody told me about this. I didn't get a meeting invite for a presentation, but it doesn't matter. We have it coming up, so let's get it going. So it was another experience, another thing, another challenge, So this is like some of the early sketches of some of the concepts that I had, and all from collaborating with other guys and knowing some of the issues that Harden has and how do we solve his problems, make them better, but also make his shoe look like something that would feel like him. And so that was a challenge. That was the fun part. And then bringing in some of like the knowledge I had in color and materials. How do I make something that looks like something that somebody's going to want to wear? So it's fun. It was fun. It was exciting. It still is exciting to look at this stuff sometimes. And then another thing is like, again, bringing back some of that design process of creating and breaking things up. Now it's like before it would be sketching and creating things. Now it's like, okay, I'm with a team and there's a lot of people who are really good at actually making physical samples. Now it's my turn to like learn how to make a physical sample, and like, so I like, rather than just sending it off to the factory and having them kind of bringing it back and kind of, hoping that it's what you envision. It's like, no, you make it yourself and then you send it to the factory, and then so they know that this is exactly how you want it. Now you know how to make an actual shoe and how things are processed together and how materials work and play with each other and how some PU materials interact with leathers and how PU materials interact with other polys. And it was new for me, and it was fun, and I think it came out pretty cool. So then after that, it's back in Portland, back with the baseball team, working on the baseball team. That's where I am now, designing product for them, working on different cleats. Currently working on Adidas' first women's specific softball cleat, which I'm really excited about. Really excited to work on this. It's solving a problem that's normally not really kind of looked at in the industry. Is a lot of times women's shoes are just kind of shrunken versions of the men's shoe, but now it's like from the ground up, we're designing something that is actually for the female consumer, which I'm really proud of and excited for. And so another thing that I kind of want to, let me get a little water, talk about is just kind of working with the team. That's refreshing. Working when as a professional or whatever, you work with a team. I think as students, we kind of sometimes forget that, and we kind of get in our bubbles and we focus on our own projects, and we just kind of work with other designers, and that's good and that's great. But in the real world, it's not really like that, right? You got the design teams, and then you have the marketing team, which are, I don't know if you know marketing people, you guys go to school, and designers are complete opposites. And then you have the developer who's in the middle, who's trying to please both sides of these coins. And so it's been an interesting dynamic, and it's fun and it's thrilling, and it's funny how it works. It's like nobody's, whatever we're creating or whatever we're designing for, nobody has the 100% to answer. We're all collaborating together to find the best solutions for these problems, right? Design, we want to push things out and make things exciting and crazy and add all this technologies to things. Marketing is like, oh, the market isn't ready for that yet, and we need to blah, 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 we need to bring it down. And then development is just kind of like, oh, how's this gonna work with the cost, and how are we gonna figure this out for the factory? So just learning how to and knowing how to work with the triad is kind of like what it's called in the industry, and working with all aspects of business are really important, and really something to really kind of think about a little bit early. Because I feel like a lot of young designers that I know think that design is just design and they're the end-all be-all, but it's more, it's more of a collaboration, more of a partnership, and learning how to navigate through that partnership is something to just think about. Don't back down or anything like that, but it's like any partnership, right? It's going to be a push and pull, and learning how to play with that tension and kind of know that tension is something to really think about in the future. So again, a lot of talking about me. It's weird to talk about myself, but the theme of the whole presentation is to design what makes you you. So what does that mean? Is it something to even think about at this point, or is it something that you guys thought about prior to this, or it's just something that I think all designers should kind of hark back to, and just know that we all have a unique perspective in whatever industry or whatever field we want to be in. The best thing about a design is there's no actual process to get from point A to point B, right? Your process is your process. As long as you know how to get to the end of the road, you can take whatever path you need to get there. And knowing your unique perspective and knowing who you are and just knowing how you work, just kind of play that up and just embrace that, and just know that I can be who I am, and I can do it how I want, and just be yourself and design what you like, and know what you kind of want to create and solve, and problems you want to solve. And so how does that work exactly? So I guess the first question to pose is, what are your passions? Kind of question that yourself. What am I passionate about? What do I want? What do I like? Can you fit those into your designs at all? Or are there passions that kind of go off of design a little bit? And either way, just know your passions and kind of figure out what they are. Are you standing out as an individual, as a designer? Are you your own person, or is your work different than the next person's, or is it a little bit similar to your colleagues and classmates? Can you be a little bit more you? Can you stand out from not even just your class, but there's a lot of resumes that are sent to different companies. Can you stand out in any way? Find your way and find your niche and stand out and do your little side things. Embrace those things. Don't make them your main purpose, but embrace the little things that make you you, right? That's just only going to set you apart. And find a way to get your foot in the door. It doesn't matter, just throw your foot in the door. You see a door open, you just throw your foot in and figure it out after you get your foot in there. Figure out how you get the rest of the body in there once you throw the foot in. If your shoe gets stuck and you gotta figure out how to get the shoe back on, just throw your foot in the door. It doesn't matter. The thing about life, I'm not a philosopher or anything. The thing about life is nobody knows where it's gonna go, and you just gotta kind of figure out the life that fits and feels right for you, and just kind of go through it there. So throw your foot in the door and see what happens. It could be something great. It could be something that you didn't like. It could be a terrible experience, but you have the power and the choice to go back and figure out something next thing. And it's all part of the experience. It's all part of the learning process, and life is just one big learning process. Once you're done with school, you still got school of life, and it ain't easy. And always have goals. I think that's key. Like, my goal is I want to be in the footwear industry. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I don't know where I'm gonna do it. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but that was my goal at a certain point. And I'm blessed that I was able to reach that goal. But now it's like, okay, what's the next goal? And what's the goal after that? Like, once you hit goals, I just want to kind of like say this. Once you hit a goal, you didn't win the prize, and there's no cake at the end of the road. It's like, okay, cool, good job, pat on the back. Now get to the next goal. What is it? Figure it out. I think that's a real big one. And yeah, I went shorter than I thought I was gonna go. That was so. We got any questions? Any questions? Yeah.
What are your next goals?
What are my next goals? That's a good question. Outside of like design and professional goals. Okay. I want to be a director for sure. I want to be at a director level. I want to, at some point, start my own thing. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't really know exactly what that is yet. I don't know if it's in the footwear industry. I just know that, you know, at some point I want to do something that's not 100% me, but mostly me, and I have control of how that goes. So that's one goal. I just, you know, still working through what that means. Outside of that, you know, other things are, you know, owning property and doing those little adult things in life that you got to think about at some point. Yeah.
How did you leverage like your other projects that you're working on, like the album covers and the merch design and stuff? Like, obviously, you've been in the shoes since you've been here. I think some of the professors actually mentioned that they had students that only did shoes no matter what the project was.
Yeah, that was me.
I'm asking is, how did you work those into your portfolio without making it just like a side page?
So I think I made sure not to make that like part of my portfolio. That's like a separate kind of extracurricular activity that I would do. So I had my design portfolio, and then I had the graphics and art portfolio that if I needed to quickly just find a graphics position, I can just show them graphics, and that would solve that problem. But I think the way I kind of put it together is like, again, when I like redid my whole thing, I was like, okay, it needs to feel a little bit more like me. And so how I presented it felt a little bit more like the graphics work that I was doing, rather than just kind of more or less like just showing my work in a you know, standard way. It was just, I just kind of like intermingled the way that I presented the work into like that.
Like an aesthetic?
Yeah, aesthetic and I would add like a project here and there, but I wouldn't make that any like main part of like my design portfolio. I would just kind of make that a plus one. Like, oh, you like this stuff. Oh, I got this too if you want to like check this out. So, and you could kind of read people if they're into some of the side things that you work on, or if not, and that's why it was kind of nice to like separate them, because if I was like in like a situation where I'm talking to somebody or I had an interview and I kind of like felt their energy, like, oh, they might want to like see some of the other stuff, I would break that out and it would be like, oh, wow, that's cool. But if I felt it and it was like, oh, this isn't a time or space, I would just kind of leave it at the one. So, yeah.
Having backgrounds from Nike, New Balance, and Adidas, like those are three brands like that have their own unique identity.
Yeah.
Like, what's the most notable thing you've learned from them? Like, what's something in common that each of those brands have?
I think this is something I think I kind of knew when I was in school, but I learned more and more as I kind of navigated through. It's all about the story. Like, what is the story? Like, what is the story? You hear that in every meeting and every brand, like, okay, what's the story? It's like, I think my first, I was like, what does that mean, with story? I don't know what you're talking about, but it's like more than just like a product. It's more than just like solving a problem. It's more than just like bringing in new technology. It's like, what is the overall story? What are you trying to tell? How are we gonna put a shoe down and walk away and let somebody kind of like create their own narrative in their head? And like, how is that gonna be a thing? Like Like a lot of I think we take for granted like footwear at a certain point. Even I did before. Like you think like, oh, it's just a cool line. It's more like it's like a year and a half just to get one product. Not to even mention like Futures Project, which is like 2-3 years. It's like, but the main part of all that is like creating a story and like creating a theme, creating a narrative for this product. What is this? If it's for a person, a specific person, how are we telling this story through this person, through the lens of this piece of footwear? If it's just filling a space in the market, like what is the story, the reason why we even need to make this? It's like a weird thing. It's kind of like, it's a metaphor a lot of times. You're like, I don't know, even still to this day, it's like, I don't know, man, we just need to have the shoes. But at the end of the day, like it's always good to think about like the backstory and creating, even if you have to create it yourself and just like conjure up something that's just kind of something. It's just like it's got to be a story. And that all brands kind of follow that theme and platform.
Going off of that, would you say that having a really good like foundation or like story is what makes the shoe successful, or how do you define a successful? How do you define a successful shoe?
There's a lot of different reasons something's successful. There's like different avenues too. It could be something that's successful because it's like the best technically performing piece of footwear. And I think a lot of times like that's more of the design part of people's, not all the time, but who geek out at how great, or even design-minded people, it doesn't even have to be a designer, how geek about how great like the shoe helps them perform, whether it's a basketball shoe. And then there's the ones that are attached to an athlete, and then this moment happens, or this asset, and it's just like, it worked perfectly. And then I think like the right way of knowing something is successful, if it kind of like reaches the brief, it helps somebody perform better, and it just kind of like has a story that just you could just feel without even like knowing the backstory. Like I think you've probably seen some things like, man, this is so cool. You could already like figuring out in your mind like why it was designed and why it was like these things were that way and stuff like that. And I think those are like the strongest ones. Yeah.
You had mentioned designing shoes for a female market. Are there any other kind of smaller markets that you've seen overlooked, or that you think are an interesting opportunity within footwear that you kind of like your head around?
I have one. Yeah, this is funny too because my dad owns a restaurant. Shout out Honey's Kettle. The plug. But anyways, my dad owns a restaurant, and it's kind of hazardous in restaurants, and it's slippery. It's always wet, and you clean, you mop. There's food that spills, and they have those shoes for crews. And there's like that one brand, and I think Skechers now creates those shoes for crews. Those Shamu beluga whale looking shoes. I worked at In-N-Out too, and I literally had to wear like the big toed beluga whale looking shoe. But I think that's like a market that hasn't really been tapped, because like we think about like the footwear industry, the food industry. It's like you're always on your toes, you're always working, you're always kind of like you're cooking and you're serving, but you're in the sense like performing athletic feats by cooking and running around. You got to grab this, you got to run this out. And so it's funny too, because and I live in Portland now. I'm like, I get in Ubers and like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I do this. Like, okay, oh, you know what you guys should do? I hear this so many times. It's like, you guys need to make a shoes for crews shoes. Like, I've heard this at least 20 times. So that's probably like something that probably needs to be tapped. Yeah.
How do you like living in Portland?
It's good. Yeah, I like it. It's different. It's definitely different. I've definitely at some point see myself back in California for sure. But Portland's been good. It's like really low key. It's really chill. The rain is something that you live with, but it's beautiful. It's like probably one of the most beautiful places I've been during the summer. So it's like summertime is like, and that's another funny thing living in California. You kind of take for granted like year round it's warm and the sun is out. But like cities and places like Boston and Portland, it's like you kind of have to like deal with the snow or the rain, and then once the summer comes, you like take full advantage. You do everything you can. So I like Portland. That was a long answer for a simple question. Yeah.
Like going back to where you're still working as a baseball footwear designer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you necessarily have to be like an athlete in the certain type of sport?
No, not at all. No, I think it helps, and it's not necessarily a requirement. I know a lot of people who've never picked up a basketball, who maybe played soccer or something growing up, and they're like on the basketball, working in basketball. Like my friend, like Jay, he's been working in basketball since he started in his career, and he's continuing basketball. He barely knows how to dribble a ball. he was a hockey kid growing up, so from Detroit. So it doesn't necessarily happen. You don't even necessarily need to be any kind of athlete or know athletics at all. I think it does help though. Like most people that I do work with, at least like have played some sport at a young age, just so they have like an understanding of what problems they're trying to solve a little more or less. But it's not required. I think running is probably the one where people get into the running business unit and they become runners. I feel like somebody's like, oh, I'm gonna be in running now. I was like, okay, cool. You gotta start running 2 marathons a year. That's the one that people are like, it's almost like required. Once you're in running, you just start running. I think it's such a simple thing to do. Not simple, like I'm not discrediting running, but it's like you just like pick it up and just learn from it really easily. It's just like, yeah, you're testing the product that you're working on.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So you seem like a case study of a child who found his talents as a youngster. Is there anything the school system offered when you were before high school that could help other kids learn to discover what their talents are? Because you seem like you almost did that. You like you were self-taught. You figured it out.
That was a long-winded question.
We'll get to that.
Now you see where I get the long-winded answers from. I think I was taking art classes. I think that was kind of like the early beginnings of what design was, like knowing how to draw and put a line on a piece of paper. That was kind of the early beginnings of that. As far as like the education system, I didn't, it was like, if you're good at this, you're going to be a lawyer. If you're good at that, you're going to be a doctor. It was kind of, and then there was me. It was like, yeah, you figure it out. So, yeah. But once I think like a lot of us in this room, once you figure it out, it's like, that's when the rubber hits the road.
I think that's one of the hardest human endeavors is to learn what your real talent, like you talk about passion,
Yeah.
you talk about goals and all those different things. That seems to be one of the hardest things a human can do is figure out what they want to do with their lives. And you seem to have started at a very early age at doing that.
Yeah, firsthand, so. What's up?
Great presentation. I would like to know, what is the biggest thing you've learned about yourself in your career journey?
Learned about myself. Man, you guys are really trying to stump me up here, huh? Thought we were family. The biggest thing I've learned about myself, I can figure it out. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, and there's times where I question, like again, like did I make the right choice? But even if I made the wrong choice, and I've made wrong choices in my life, it's like, well, I got to figure that out. It's like, I think us as people or humans or whatever you want to call us, we are like capable of a lot more than what we think we can. Like just it's simple stuff, nothing like crazy, but like the fact that I had to go to Boston, I had no place to live. I had to do that within like 2 weeks, figure that out. And so I literally got off the plane, downloaded Uber because it's just aged myself a little bit, but downloaded Uber because that was when it first was really starting, and then just took it to. Where did I go? I think I literally was like messaging a guy on Craigslist before going out there, and he's like, oh, I need to meet you before I can sign off on this. But I just needed a place to live, and I got to the guy's house, and I was like, yeah, I'm not living here. So then I had to like take it to the hostel and had to live there for a week and figure out how I'm going to find a place to live, and then, yeah, you can figure it out. Like, trust yourself.
Do you foresee like more sensors or better electronics? And it's kind of a buzzy thing these days.
Yeah.
But do you foresee, like, besides a pedometer, like past that, do you foresee that becoming an actual like market solution for any?
Yeah. 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 A little bit. I'm not in the futures team. I know that they're working on things like that. I'm more of like the inline calendar, and but yeah, definitely for sure. Stumped me. So.
About internships, did you, how did you go about, like finding them? Like, did you like go out and find them yourself, or were they like connections that you got?
I think I mean I didn't have like traditional internships when I was like in school. Like I was probably like the one student who wasn't landing internships. I was like, damn, what's wrong with me? Like, what am I doing wrong? But I guess my internship was, again, like working on these like side projects, like being the art director for these artists and learning how to do things, do that. I got the internship after graduating, and that was just me applying and just kind of setting myself apart with like how I presented myself, and that was, yeah, I literally got lucky, man. I got lucky. But I think luck is, what is the saying? How's the saying go? Luck is preparation, something or another. Yeah.
I bumped into you in senior studio a little bit ago, and you were giving some advice that I think was hard given to you.
Yeah.
As a student.
Yeah.
Would you mind repeating that advice?
Which this was today, or which advice was this? I feel like again.
Right at the end about continuing to show process.
Oh yeah. That's that's right. Yeah, I saw a lot of people's work in the senior studio, and it was great stuff and like final stuff. But at the end of the day, like these directors and these people, they're looking for the process. They're looking for the story. They're not looking for a shiny, polished object. Obviously, that's the gold at the end of the rainbow. But they want to know how you got above the rainbow and down the woods and through the woods to get there. And it's like there was a lot of great stuff that I was seeing, but you got to show your process. You got to show sketching. It's like important. You think it's like, oh, these are my ugly sketches and stuff like that. And even I sometimes think like that. But don't show all of them, but show some of them. Show, and that sketching's not just pen to paper. Sketching technically is all things. It's tape up models. It's creating small components using wood and rubber, depending on what you're doing. Just showing like how you're thinking about things and how you kind of are trying to solve these problems is something that people want to see more so than a perfect object at the end of it. 'Cause that's great and that's good, but everybody's still a student, so you're always going to just continue to develop. They want to see how you develop and not just how you create something that looks beautiful. You got to show like the ugly that got you to. Gotta show the ugly duckling before you can show the swan. You like that?